What up, it's your boy Afro, back here doing another album review. Been a minute, I know, I've been busy. But I wanted to chat about this new Young Thug album, Business is Business. I'm gonna be real, I've never actually listened to a full album by Young Thug. I've listened to a bunch of his singles, especially around 2015, 2016. But I've never been an invested enough fan to listen to a full project of his. But I came across a couple singles for this album that piqued my interest. So I decided to listen to the whole thing on this occasion. And you know what? I'm glad I did. There were elements of the album that I wasn't a big fan of. Personally, I felt like the first half was nowhere near as strong as the second. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the album. I'm not going to go through every song because that'll be a long thing, but I'm going to give a run through of some of the main songs that stood out for me. Let's start with the things that I loved about this album. Before I say anything else, I'm going to make it clear I'm a big Metro Boomin fan. I have been for quite a while, so you won't be surprised when I tell you that my favourite songs were by Metro Boomin. I also personally think that Young Thug's delivery and Metro Boomin's style of production are a really good match together. This was made especially apparent on three of my favourite songs in this album: Mad Dog, Jonesboro and Want Me Dead. Jonesboro is legit probably one of my favourite songs from Young Thug. From his delivery to the background harmonies, accompanied by the core piano melody and the groove on the percussion, honestly, fire. Cars Bring Me Out was also a solid track. I'm less familiar with Des Wright and Wheezy's style of production, but I honestly think that they killed it here. The use of layered guitar melodies alongside the groove of the 808 and the hi-hats, fire. I also think that Future and Young Thug on this are a great match, going back and forth in the verses. The outro song was also especially strong in my opinion, with a lot of the album thematically being what you typically expect from a Young Thug album, that being sex, drugs, money, all that. This song felt a lot more grounded in my opinion. The tone of the song is made immediately apparent by the intro from Nate Ruiz, alluding to the experience of Young Thug's words being used against him. With this being Thug's first album release since he faced the RICO charges last year, I imagine a lot of this is in relation to that. Either way, great song and a great close to the album. Now moving on to the things that I wasn't a big fan of. From a production standpoint, Money on the Dresser and Gucci Grocery Bag were easily two of the most uninteresting songs on this entire project. The composition and song structure to me felt really underdeveloped, and the sound selection felt really generic in the trap space. These songs came pretty early on in the album as well, and to me were so uninteresting that I almost considered not continuing to listen to the rest of it. Fortunately, the songs that came after that were pretty decent, but it wasn't a great start to the album. Went Through It, in my opinion, is also a contender to be one of the worst songs on the album, but not from a production standpoint. In this case, I had more of an issue with Thug himself. In general, I personally find Thug's delivery to be very hit or miss. More hits than misses, but on this occasion, he really did not hit. When he's able to find a balance between the natural raspiness of his delivery with softer harmonies and melodies, he is at his best. But on this occasion, I honestly think he turned the raspiness just a little bit too high. It was probably an artistic decision, but for me personally, it just didn't hit as well as I would have liked. If I'm honest, and I kinda hate to say it, but I also wasn't a big fan of the opening track, Parade on Cleveland. Not because I thought it was a bad song, but more because I didn't feel like it suited the album. The production was pretty smooth and reasonably interesting, but to me it felt more like a Drake track than it did a Young Thug track. And you might argue that's because Drake was in the first half of the song and Thug only comes later on. But even during Young Thug's section, I still felt like it had a really Drake heavy feel. Like it reminded me a lot of Drake's music from like 2015, 2016, which I don't think is a good thing. I think Young Thug has a really unique and specific sound, and when he's trying to emulate other artists, especially on the opening track for his own album, it gives kind of mixed signals and it put me off a little bit. Summarising my thoughts, there were a lot of good things about this album and some bits that weren't particularly strong. I definitely think the good outweighs the bad here though. There were a bunch of other songs on this album that I did also love, but for the sake of keeping the video short, I didn't want to spend too much time on them. I thought that Want Me Dead was also a pretty strong track with 21 Savage. Hellcat Kenny was also a very strong track. Ignoring a couple very questionable bars from Lil Uzi, for me the weak points in this album definitely sat with the production, which in some areas was pretty strong, but unfortunately in other parts a lot more generic and underdeveloped in my opinion. I do think that a lot of the success from a production standpoint leans quite heavily on Metro and his team on this one. But what did you lot think of the album? Are my comments fair? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you lot in the next one.